lot going on here.
There is, and the sad part is some of that may be outdated. Because I generated it yesterday. They just announced last month that every student that graduates by 2029 will be fluent in AI in their field. If it doesn't know it, it'll just make it up. And that journal or that book that it's citing doesn't even exist. The number one asked question in job interviews is, what kind of AI skills do you have? You won't always have a calculator in your pocket. You've got to know how to do the math. You've got to spell it out. When somebody dies, we take their memory and upload them into a bot. Mm-hmm. And they live in this world where they're basically an avatar, because we're going to have more and more people putting data into places where they really shouldn't, because they just don't understand the ramifications of it's now the world's data instead of just yours. Change is hard. I mean, nobody likes change, whether it's in business, whether it's in education, wherever. And, especially where we live in this area, I feel like we really stick to traditional things in education and in life now. We need to stop teaching the answers. We need to start teaching the questions.
Welcome to No Holds Barred. I'm Rich Roth, and my guest today is Charley Butcher, the Chief Educational Technology Officer at the University of Lynchburg. That's a mouthful. Charley, welcome.
It is a mouthful, but it's nothing what my title used to be, so I'm grateful for this one.
A little more short and to the point?
Yes, it used to be Director of Instructional Technology, Faculty Development, and Digital Processes.
Holy cow.
So
that is a mouthful.
Yes, so this one is much, much better.
Awesome. We're going to be talking about AI today, and I am just dipping my toe into it, and I punched into ChatGPT, who are the foremost authorities in the Lynchburg area on AI, and your name was one of the ones who popped up, and we know each other, and I'm like, that's awesome. That's great. Let's talk.
Absolutely.
So
I was
here you are.
Surprised to get your phone call, and super happy too as well.
I'm excited to learn more, and in advance of this conversation, I asked Charley to send me a little bit of light reading on AI, and as you can see, it just keeps going and going and going. So last night at 11 o'clock, I saw the email and I'm like, oh, let me just read this before bed. And over an hour later, there's a lot going on here.
There is. And the sad part is some of that may be outdated. Because I generated it yesterday. So because it changes so fast. Day to day, we get new advances, new tools, new features inside of these tools. And you really got to put in some effort to keep up with AI.
You use the term tools, and when we were talking earlier, I was calling it kind of software or programs or whatever. But it's like there are so many different things that AI can do, and there are so many different, I guess, tools made by different companies that do a lot of the same things. I mean, I was blown away by it all. I mean, I know ChatGPT, of course, Grok from X. Yeah. There are a couple others that I think most people are at least aware of. But, I mean, nothing like this. This is crazy.
Yeah, well, ChatGPT is kind of like, I'm from Kentucky, so we say, we're going to go get a Coke. Whether it's a Pepsi, a Mountain Dew,
right.
Dr. Pepper,
Yep.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. We're going to go get a Coke. ChatGPT is kind of like that for AI. I'm going to ChatGPT this. Whether you're using Watson X, Claude, Gemini, any of those, people will say, I'm going to ChatGPT it.
So do me a favor, before we dive into this, talk a little bit about what you do at the University of Lynchburg and how this integrates to what you do, and really, how students are learning. And what I want to get into today is for old people like myself who are just kind of starting to accept, this isn't going to go away. I guess I better learn it. And then you start figuring out, wow, this is really cool. It can help with a lot of things. And then the next question is the information reliable? And you gave me a whole bunch of information, and fortunately, you know it all. So, we'll be picking your brain on all that stuff. But start off by talking a little bit about what you do at Lynchburg.
Right. Well, like you said, I'm the Chief Educational Technology Officer. So historically, my position has been to help faculty learn how to teach differently. The students that we have coming out of K-12 weren't taught like you and I were taught. It's not sit here, do this worksheet. They want to be more creative, and they've got technology at their fingertips. Memorization's not at the forefront. like it used to be for us. Now they have a computer in their pocket with their phone that can give you any answer. So now we have to start teaching how can they take this answer they found on their phone and apply it to solve a real world problem. So it's more application that we need to be teaching. So that's kind of what I've been assigned to do for I've been here 13 years now. And the fall of 2022, I guess it was late fall, November-ish, ChatGPT hit. And they went to 1 million users in 5 days.
Wow.
So my role totally changed because I needed to start figuring out how are we going to deal with this? What does it look like? How's it going to change the higher ed and K-12 educational space? So I've spent the last 2 years basically trying to figure that out with the help of all kinds of people. I have a pretty good network from people I've met at conferences and those kinds of things, and we're all in contact with each other trying to figure it out. And one of the best ways I can relate it to people that aren't in higher ed or K-12 is I can remember vividly sitting in 10th grade, 1988, Lafayette High School, Lexington, Kentucky, Marcia Bordis's Algebra 2 class.
Okay.
And her yelling at us that you won't always have a calculator in your pocket. You've got to know how to do the math. You've got to spell it out, those kinds of things. This is kind of what this is reminding me of. It's really a disruptor to the way we've taught. The calculator was back then. But now we don't have those arguments. And I think in 10, maybe even 5 years, AI is just going to be a daily part of most people's lives.
Yeah, and I want to get into that, where it's going, how it's going to affect people, and how they can use it in their everyday lives, how we can use it in business as well. Plus what you guys are teaching and how students coming up can utilize this or learn to utilize this to help them more as they enter the workforce. You mentioned ChatGPT. That was kind of the first one.
Yep.
My frame of reference with ChatGPT when I first kind of was introduced to it was, okay, this is a program that helps kids write their papers and not do the work. And that's sort of a big part of it. I mean, I've heard that it's hard to check and see if AI is writing papers for kids now. There's no way to kind of really know. Yeah. I mean, where are we at?
So I would say that 90% of the people believe what you just said. It's just going to help kids write papers. And that is probably 5% of what AI is going to be doing for us. I use it every day in my work life, not writing papers. It helps me clean up emails. It helps me develop proposals where I've put in the framework and it puts the extra stuff that I could get to, but it's going to save me an hour and a half. You mentioned how's it going to affect business? I believe that these entry-level positions that most college students or graduates are getting are going to go away. We are already seeing with our career educational services department at the university, the number one asked question in job interviews is, what kind of AI skills do you have? And we're taking the approach at the university that...
What is an AI skill?
All right, so prompt engineering is the biggest thing. So prompt engineering is putting in the information into the chat box in whatever AI tool you're using to get out the desired piece of information that you're looking for. And it really takes critical thinking and the ability to write well to be able to compose great prompts to get out what you want.
How long should a prompt be?
It depends on what you're trying to get out. I've written prompts that are maybe 10, 11 paragraphs long.
Wow, okay.
But I'm looking to produce an entire proposal that's going to be maybe 30 pages long. And it's helping me build upon those things. And then it's crucial for me to go back through whatever is generated by AI and vet that, yes, this is accurate. This is what I wanted to say. More critical thinking. You know, we're under accreditation for the next 10 years, and we have to have a quality enhancement program, QEP. So our QEP is going to be critical thinking. This plays right into that for us.
So I think the fear that a lot of people, maybe like myself, have is that this is going to take away the critical thinking. Kids coming up nowadays don't need to do the work. They don't need to be able to write. They don't need to be able to do all this stuff because they can just, pop into Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever, write me a 3-page paper on, the Revolutionary War and how it impacted the 13 colonies or whatever.
Yeah, and that is a argument that I hear all the time.
Right.
It's also one that I push back a little because I graduated from college in 1994, and the last paper I wrote was in 1994. That's not a skill that we have to have in our daily lives. We're not always writing research, argumentative synthesis papers. Now, do I write emails and blog posts and grant proposals and all that stuff? Yes. But I would like to argue that that's not the only way to teach how to write, is write a paper. We can do that in any number of forms. One of the things we've been doing for the last 5 years at the University of Lynchburg, because we're a Google institution, is we use Google Sites, and it's replaced a lot of the research papers. So then the student not only has to go and find the research and collect all the information, but now they're writing a different style and posting it on a website that we tell them at the beginning, we're going to open this up to the world.
What's Google Sites?
Google Sites is their application that allows you to build a website, and it's built for third graders to be able to do it. So anybody can build it. You don't have to know coding. You just have to know how to use a mouse and a keyboard. It's point and click.
That's wild.
So, but we're teaching the students how to write for websites. That's a 21st century skill, because we are going to have several students leave us and go have to write for websites. And grant proposals, like I said, or emails. Those are the kinds of things I think we need to be focusing on. And if you learn how to write well with those, writing is writing.
But you're writing and then you're popping them into a AI program, Gemini, ChatGPT, or whatever, to clean it up and polish it up and do all those different things.
But we've been doing that since 1995 or 6 when Microsoft first put in their spell checker. It's the same kind of thing. The last 6 or 7 years, we've had Grammarly that does a really good job of helping you with the syntax and all that. And we didn't have those complaints then. This is that next iteration where, yes, I can put in there. If I went into, we use Gemini at the University of Lynchburg, and I'll talk a little bit later why over ChatGPT. But if I could go in there and say, write me a theme of love in Romeo and Juliet, a 7-page essay. Boom, it's done. But that's been done for how many years? So why are we having to redo that same assignment? It's when you start connecting the assignments to personal experiences, ChatGPT, Gemini, Watson X, Claude, they can't do that for you because they don't have your personal experiences. Now, can I put in there, I used to do this, blah, 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 and it can help me frame this entire paper or this email or whatever? Absolutely. And what we're trying to do is teach the journey of the paper or the assignment, instead of just grading that final assignment. So our students have to turn in the prompts that they put in. They have to turn in the feedback that tool gave them. And now how did they synthesize those two things to make that assignment better? So that's all critical thinking right there.
So that's how you guys are teaching students to use AI.
Yes. And we call it the sandwich technique. AI at the beginning, human in the middle, AI at the end. Or you could go human at the beginning, AI, human. So either way you go with that. But I think we all...
Which is preferable?
It just depends on the assignment, I think. In my daily work, typically go AI, human, AI, because it makes it quicker. And with the amount of hats that I wear and the amount of things that I have to get done, which I think would apply to a lot of people and a lot of businesses, they need to be as efficient as possible.
Here at James River Media, we obviously own WLNI Radio, and we're seeing more and more clients using AI to write their radio commercials, which is great on one level. But, you talk about the human, AI, human, that seems preferable to me for that situation, because you want to put that personal touch on it to
Absolutely.
be able to, do that.
So I was at a teaching with AI conference at the University of Central Florida last year, and I got the chance to hear Jose Bowen speak. And he used to be a college president at Goucher College, and now he's with the American Colleges Association or something like that, and he's one of their bigwigs. And one of the things he really wanted to talk about was AI is just raising the average. It's never going to get to an A+. But what used to be 70 level work is now 85 level work because of AI. And it's really going to help your employees that struggle because it's going to give them an extra tool that they didn't have. Our employees that are really gifted and creative really aren't turning to AI that much. They may use it to fine-tune some things, and they don't need as much help as some of the other employees do. So it's really just raising that average. But in order to get to that A+ level, you got to have the human touch. And you've got to take this first iteration and now critically think about it and really refine and make it something even better.
Charley, how does someone who doesn't really have much experience with AI, how do you recommend they dip their toe in and start?
First, give yourself a chance just to play. I recommend Gemini, and I'll talk a little bit about why.
Please.
Just because we're a Google campus, that's not the only reason. If you purchase a Google One account, not the free Google Gmail that everybody has, but a Google One account or your Workspace for Business or Workspace for Education account, that the information that you put into Gemini is not used to train the model. And what I mean by that is that the data doesn't go in and become part of this mass data set that's owned by that company. So it's protected, it's safe, it's secure. So I don't have to worry about if I accidentally leak some sort of information inside of Gemini. You know, I'm using this spreadsheet and I want to analyze the data. Oh, wait, I forgot I had this column hidden. You know, if I put it into just the free version of ChatGPT or the free version of Gemini or Watson or Claude, then it is part of the model now. And
what does that mean? How does that impact?
So that data is being used to train. It's now being used when somebody else asks a question. It's going to use that data when it shouldn't use that data. You want to protect your own data.
Right.
Data is the new gold.
So when you're saying it's being trained to use that, it's not just for me and what I use.
Correct.
Like when I've used ChatGPT, right on the left-hand column, it's got all my different searches or whatever until I go in and delete them.
Right. And all the stuff that you put in, say you added a file in there, that would be part of the mass data set that anybody
could. Okay.
On the free versions.
Okay.
The paid versions operate totally differently. So first I would recommend, and they're only $20 a month, and you can pay monthly or you can pay yearly. I would recommend purchasing one of those. I like Gemini because Google also owns the entire tech stack. And what I mean by that is ChatGPT is owned by 6 or 7 different companies. Mm-hmm. And if one of them were to pull out, what happens? You know, Google owns everything inside of Gemini. You know, I kind of get made fun of at the university because, you know, I'm the Gemini guy or the Google guy, you know, or whatever. I say Google has an answer for everything. And it's because they kind of do. But the security protocols that we have in place on our Workspace for Education accounts are what I'm looking for. And then once you play, then the possibilities are really limitless. It's just your imagination that'll hold you back. I celebrated my 30th anniversary this summer.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. I went to Iceland for 3 days and Ireland for 7 days. I used Gemini to create the entire trip. We went with another couple, and I got it down to where I did deep research, like what I gave you for these for your light reading,
right.
And then I put it into another tool called Canvas in Gemini, and I said, all right, using this deep research file, I want you to create me an itinerary. But I've only got 3 days in Iceland and 7 in Ireland, and I really want to hit the most common, you know, tourist attractions. It gave me this, and then I said, now I want you to put that into a itinerary that has times, and it spit out 7:30 to 8 o'clock. You're at breakfast. 8 to 8:30. You're in the car going to the lava tunnel in Iceland. From 8:30 to 9:30, you're exploring the lava tunnel. Then you're back in the car. I mean, it did that all the way down.
So you mentioned Canva within Gemini.
Canvas.
Yes,
it's different from Canva. It's commonly confused, but
right.
Yes.
Okay. And that was one of my takeaways from the light reading that you referenced just a second ago, was that there are so many different tools that handle so many different jobs, for maybe lack of a better word. But I mean, the amount of different programs, tools, whatever word you want to use, that exist for AI to do different things is overwhelming.
And the scary part is we're just getting started. Because, like I was telling you earlier, 95% of the world's data has been created in the last 2 years.
That's unreal.
And it's all from this AI explosion. And we don't even have all the tools that are going to be developed. Google has a tool called Notebook LM. and it's like a personal assistant AI. So whatever resource I put into Notebook LM.
So a personal assistant AI is sort of like Siri.
Siri on steroids.
Okay.
So let's say for my job, I have these 3 files that I want to analyze. If I put those into Gemini, it's going to look at those 3 files, but also the entire rest of the internet. And I don't want it to do that. I want it just to focus on those 3 files. I can put that in Notebook LM and ask it questions, and it'll say that information is not found. Where in Gemini or ChatGPT, it may make something up, and we call those hallucinations in AI. And if it does,
can you give a more specific example? So
what we run into a lot is students will write these papers and want references, and they'll say include 3 references. If it doesn't know it, it'll just make it up, and that journal or that book that it's citing doesn't even exist. But again, here's where critical thinking comes back in. You've got to vet and find and make sure that everything that you're producing with this you own, because you are saying, I've done this, I've vetted this, and it's mine. We also are teaching them how to cite AI properly in our papers and those kinds of things. But Notebook LM will create a podcast for me. So my boss gives me 3 proposals I'm supposed to read. Mm-hmm. I'll put them in Notebook LM, create a podcast, download it to my phone. When I run in the mornings, I'll be listening to it. Now, what's really cool is if I'm listening to it on my computer, I can hit one button and it'll stop the podcast. I can speak through the mic, ask a question, it'll answer the question, and then go on with the podcast.
Wow.
So I thought that was the coolest thing ever until last Tuesday. Because Notebook LM released a new feature that from these same resources, I can click a button, it'll create a video overview. So now it's creating slides with a voiceover that I can then watch. So we're meeting the needs of all kinds of different learners there. Mm.
How do you know like where to go for all this? I mean, again, I'm ChatGPT, now I'm learning Grok and Gemini, but then Gemini's got Notebook LM, and it's all these different layers. And I mean,
so your light reading is what I do. I spend usually the first hour of my morning, I don't even get out of bed, I'm scrolling through X, because I've got a pretty good professional development community there, reading about different things. And that's the only way you really can keep up, because it's moving so quickly. And then a lot of times I'll log into Notebook LM or Gemini, or I do have a paid version of ChatGPT as well, or DALL-E, and DALL-E's the image creation inside of ChatGPT.
Okay.
And all of a sudden there's a new feature there. And now I spend 15, 20 minutes just playing with it. Because you've really got to play to understand. I've taken that approach throughout my entire career. When I was in the K-12 classroom, when I introduced something new, I'd allow them to play for 10 or 15 minutes. And now let's try to apply it to what?
So back to someone who's just really starting to play, right? Starting to learn, starting to, we've broken down and we said, all right, it's not going away. We're going to use this, or we're going to try to. And you mentioned ChatGPT, and there's Grok, and there's Gemini. How do you start just playing?
So I would simply open up whichever tool you choose. In the chat box, start with something you know. So what it's going to produce at first is going to be very, surface level, and you should know the bulk of that information if it's something that you really know. I know I have my partner in crime at the University of Lynchburg is Sandra Perez, and she and I do a lot of our trainings. She likes to use it for gardening, and she knows a lot about gardening, and that's how she got started. She would just type in stuff about, and then she would verify, that looks right, ooh, that doesn't look right. So now let me dive in on that a little more. And you can see in this paragraph that ChatGPT or Gemini gives you, you can say, highlight that and say, can you expand on this for me? And you just keep drilling down and until you're starting to learn the cadence of almost that conversation you're having with AI.
Let's talk about how it does, and we'll get into what it could potentially do down the road, both personally and in business. But in business, you said that you think that a lot of the entry-level positions will be eliminated at some point.
I think we're starting to see that already.
Name a couple.
So I know that a lot of the internships, your first and second year already employees can do a lot of the stuff that they were doing using AI, and it's gone. So a lot of companies are moving away from some of those internship opportunities. So now, where are those students going to get that experience? Sitting, learning, watching. It's going to be tougher. This next 5 years, I think, is going to be really tough on the job market.
What do you recommend students do?
There's a lot of free AI certifications out there. I've taken several myself. I think that's one of the keys. So then on your resume, you can show that I know how to do this, I know how to do this, I know how to do this. If you want to go so far as do some of the paid certifications, now you're getting credibly badges and those kinds of things that'll set your resume apart.
So basically, you're suggesting that kids nowadays in college, and obviously younger as well, really need to be studying AI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are trying to build that into all of our courses at the University of Lynchburg. Ohio State's the leader in this right now. They just announced last month that every student that graduates by 2029 will be fluent in AI in their field.
Wow.
So that means they have to start this year with this incoming freshman class. And I think you're going to see the mass transition in higher ed to that. And if they're doing it in higher ed, it's going to filter down. Those K-12 kids are going to have to start doing those kinds of things.
So as far as businesses now, and I know plenty are integrating it, like I said, we are, others we know are. Where's it being used most commonly?
I've seen it a lot with finance. So they can look at, what their expenditures and those kinds of things. Is there any redundancies? I've seen it in employee handbooks to see, does it contradict itself? Those kinds of things. I've seen it, scheduling. Mm-hmm. All these things that could take a couple dozen, maybe hours to really sit down and come up with is now done in seconds. So just the efficiency and streamlining of your processes, I think is the best use right now.
And if you are using it, as a business, and you alluded to this earlier, but I just want to make sure that I've got it right. Businesses who are using this, especially if they're uploading information, need to have a paid version so that it doesn't get shared universally.
And, like I said, they make fun of me. I'm the Google guy. But if I had a business, I would be using Google Workspace for Business. It's the collaboration piece that it offers blows Microsoft and Microsoft Teams out of the water. And it's so much easier. That's why it's in K-12. I mean, I can share a file with thousands of people, and we can have up to 100 people editing all at the same time, and you can see everybody doing that. No more of the days where, I've got a document, I send it to you via email. Can you mark that up and send it back to me? Those are gone. And it's the Google Workspace for Business, I think, changes the whole collaboration piece. And we're seeing that where I believe the stat, I was in New York at a Google event 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago now, where they said that 30% of the Fortune 500 companies are now Google, and 80% of the Fortune 400 are now Google.
Wow.
So you're seeing that transition. And I really think that they're moving into that space.
So other than the fact that you can share it with more people, what are some of the other things that sets Google apart from Microsoft and some of the others?
Well, I think the version history is another big one. So let's say I've got this great proposal, and I share it with you, and I say, hey, Rich, can you take a look at this and make some edits? And you just jack the whole thing up. When 2 clicks, I can have it back exactly how I had it. There's no saving. Google saves for you automatically. As soon as you stop typing, it saves. And it's just more user-friendly. You don't have the training that you have to have. And really, conceptually, it works almost the same as Microsoft, other than the sharing, the way it's shared. And there's no need for SharePoint and some of these extra features that you have to pay for. It's all native within this. And it's really, the licensing structure is cheaper than Microsoft. And then with that, you get your protected AI. Because it comes with, when your workspace paid, it's not being used to train the model. So you upload those files of your data, your finances, in a Notebook LM or Gemini, and it's okay.
And that's not the case for Microsoft.
Well, Microsoft has its own AI
right,
called Copilot.
Yeah.
But it's also As of last month, it was the one that had the most amount of hallucinations. We talked where it just kind of makes stuff up.
Just define that again for us.
That's where if it doesn't know the answer, it'll make it up.
Make it up.
So, I think ChatGPT and Gemini are the leaders. Claude is really good at some things like writing prose and unpacking SOLs and, those kinds of things. Watson X is pretty good at some STEM stuff. But Gemini and ChatGPT are the two leaders. And, if we weren't a Google institution, I would be pushing for us to have paid educational ChatGPT licenses. But it comes with ours, so we don't have to pay extra.
Mm-hmm. Once again, Charley Butcher joining me from the University of Lynchburg, talking about AI and, the impact that it's having and, and how we can learn to use it, how we can use it, and just all the different things that it can do. What's the craziest thing that AI can do that's really, at least as far as you're concerned, what have you sat there and gone, I can't believe it can do this?
Well, I saw a video at that conference I was talking about in teaching with AI at University of Central Florida that was made totally by AI. It started off saying, as it was the kickoff video for the whole conference, and like with 10 minutes to go, it put a big 10 up on the screen, and all of a sudden John Wayne came on and said, "Hey, can you guys please take your seats? We're getting ready to start." And then at the 5-minute mark, there's Burt Reynolds. And then Judy Garland came on. And then James Dean came on with 1 minute to go. And it was just nuts. And then the video that it produced was crazy. And I talked to the guy that did it from the University of Central Florida afterwards. And he's like, "Yeah, I did this in 30-second segments. I would go he was using Google VEO3, which is another AI tool that creates video. And he goes in and you put a prompt in and it'll create video. And he would go through and do that for 30-second clips until he got exactly what he wanted. And then he used a product called Camtasia to put all those video clips together. Camtasia is like iMovie or Final Cut Pro or any of those, and just put them together and made this video. And then he used a product called 11 Labs to do the famous people in their voice, and he just put in the text what he wanted them to say. And because AI has so much information on John Wayne and that iconic voice that's out there, it was able to mimic that and have him talk.
How scared should we be of what AI can do? I mean, you're talking about mimicking voices and videos and, we're hearing crazy stuff about, I was even reading something the other day about, it taking the image of someone in a bathing suit and making them naked. And next thing you know, it's out there and it's not real, but not everyone knows it's not real.
And that's the critical thinking piece that comes in. The best example I can give that we can share on the radio was it this past summer or the summer before where we had the Olympics in Paris? It was this summer. It wasn't this summer.
No, it wasn't.
It was last summer. And they had an interview of Steve Kerr after Steph Curry had that amazing gold medal game and hit those 2 big threes. And what he was saying was not what he said.
Right.
It was all fun and in jest, and it was just talking up Steph Curry, but it wasn't exactly what he said. And if you don't really dig and verify sources, you're going to be tricked. But even before AI, that was happening. We've had this concept of fake news for years. And anybody that sees something on the internet or anywhere else should try to find it in secondary places to confirm before you go and share it out on your social media and those kinds of things. We all should take that tack, and we should do it even more now with AI into the mix.
So that raises the $1 million question. How many people actually do that?
I can tell you one that does.
You?
Yes, because I'm not going to share anything out that I haven't verified. Because I feel like when you share something out on the internet, you're putting yourself and your reputation behind that. And if it's something that's not true, I don't want that to be my reputation and a reflection of me.
What else do we need to worry about? I mean, you talked about hallucinations, where AI will make up stuff if it doesn't have an answer to it. We talked about now the deep fakes or, those types of things. What about just misinformation?
Well, that all depends on the data that the model's being trained on, right? So if we've got people out there building their own AI bots now, and whatever information that they're putting in, that's all that AI bot can analyze and do. So we really need, like I talked about earlier, data is gold. You really need to make sure that your data is clean and clear and good and accurate in order to do any of this AI.
And realistically, what I'm hearing you say is that that's up to us individually to corroborate all that information.
Absolutely. That's that human piece that I was talking about earlier. I don't believe we're going to get to the point where, what is it, the Terminator movie was, I always get it confused with Elon Musk, Starlink or Starnet,
right.
Starnet. I don't think we're going to get to that. But I do think we have instances where we have job seekers using AI to write their cover letters and resumes, and employers using AI to read these. So it's AI talking to AI to vet what's the best ones. We have a lot of those instances. So, and I think you need to really be intentional about using AI for things like that, because we do have bias. You and I talked a little bit about it earlier. The data that the model's been trained on is the only thing it can use. So there's going to be some sort of implicit bias there. So not all voices are heard, and not all voices have the data inputted into the model. So you've really got to be careful with that. I know for some people that's not as big of a deal. I think it's pretty important that we give everybody a fair shot.
There was talk, and it may have been in the light reading you gave me or someplace else that I came across it, that at some point in the very near future, our lifetimes, most likely, AI will be smarter than humans.
I'm not sure that's going to be 100% accurate. I think AI is like having a best friend that's read 90% of the internet and understands most of it. But in order to get it to give you what you need, you still have to be smart enough to ask it the right questions. There was a great quote at the Google event I was at that they said, in education and in life now, we need to stop teaching the answers. We need to start teaching the questions, because we have something else to give us the answers.
So that's really where we're going. It's use AI as a tool to help you, but you have to be able to ask it the right questions.
Correct.
And put in the right prompts.
The right quality of prompts, so that where our writing skills come in. The critical thinking on how are you going to phrase this and add in the extra information that it's going to need to really get you what you want. I very rarely get exactly what I want on the first prompt. And then I'll say, hey, can you refine this? Or can you expand on that? And it's just speeding me up. I could have gotten to this input eventually, but I just took a 8-hour project down to 10 minutes.
So for all the parents out there, or the older people, oh my God, I'm an older person now.
I am too, Rich. We're right there together.
What happened to us?
Yeah.
But for all those of us who worry about the future and the dumbing down of our children, you're saying that's not really the case, because in order to really be successful moving forward as our kids get older, they need to be smart enough to utilize AI to help them get done the job that they need to do.
Yep, and I'll return to my calculator example. Our generation, I don't feel that's dumber because we use calculators. Mm-hmm. Now, my dad's generation, he was a math teacher. He didn't believe I should be using a calculator in high school or in college. But that's not even a question now. So I just think change is hard. I mean, nobody likes change, whether it's in business, whether it's in education, wherever. And, especially where we live in this area, I feel like we really stick to traditional things. And I'm not saying that's bad. I just think it makes the change even harder.
You talked about how somebody should just start playing with it, right? If they want to use it in their personal life, and they're waving the white flag. I'm giving up. I'm gonna use it. What about for different businesses with all the different, to use your word, tools, right? Programs that are out there that do all these different things. How does a business owner or someone who manages a certain part of a business, how do they get involved to figure out what's going to be best for their specific business? I mean, is it just using AI to say, hey, what should I use? Like, do I just jump in ChatGPT and say, how do I create a radio commercial, or how do I replace my art director? Sorry, here, I'm just kidding.
You could go that route, but I would argue this is an opportunity to hire somebody that really is trained on this. And if you can get somebody like that into your business, I think they can transform your entire business, and it would be well worth that salary that you'll end up paying them. And we're hoping to introduce some courses here at the University of Lynchburg on some AI fluency and AI literacy here in the near future. And those are the kinds of things you got to look for, those types of future employees that have those skills, and it's going to help you. And they'll help teach your staff those skills as well. I mean, that's part of my role now. I have to teach most of our faculty on AI. My partner in crime, Sandra Perez, usually teaches the staff, but I will at times teach staff as well. But you've got to have those champions there in your business, your school, wherever, that's going to help you. I'd be willing to bet that Ryan has helped you with some ChatGPT stuff. Those are the kinds of things, my son, Kyle, helped me right at the beginning, and I ran with it. My dad calls me, he's 86 years old. He works for my brother. He owns 3 funeral homes outside of Lexington, Kentucky. And my dad, in the past few weeks, his calls, I spend my drive on the way in talking to him on the phone. He'll be like, hey, can you walk me through how to do this in AI so I can help your brother do this at the funeral home, and those kinds of things. So it's not just young people that's doing this. We got a call. Sandra and I did a webinar for EDUCAUSE, which is the higher ed tech consortium across the country. We had 133 people watch our webinar that we did last week. We got a call when we were promoting it from Westminster Canterbury, and they were like, our residents are really interested in learning about this, so can they watch? And we're like, absolutely. And we do a thing at the University of Lynchburg called Life at Lynchburg, where on one Wednesday morning a month, we bring in retired people, and we have different programming for them. We're talking about doing an AI session for them as well. So it's not just the younger people that are interested in this.
Where's this all going?
I think productivity is going to look very different in the next 5 years. And I think that's where we're headed. It's going to be more streamlined, more efficient. I can liken it to, you go to McDonald's now. They don't take your order at the counter anymore.
No, they
you
don't.
go to the touch screen and you do that, the automation. We're going to it's going to be similar to that in our streamlining of processes. We're going to have people that are really skilled at prompt engineering, and they're going to help you streamline and become more efficient in your businesses.
How real can AI create? I mean, I've even heard crazy things about, people having relationships with AI. Is bots the right word? I don't even know what the right word is.
They're bots. How real? It just, you can have a conversation with it. One of the cool things with Gemini is they have these things called gems, which are personas inside of your AI. And they have about a dozen pre-made ones, or you can make your own gem. One of them is a learning assistant. So if you really wanted to learn Gemini, you could go in there and click on this learning assistant and say, hey, can you help me learn how to be a great Gemini user? And it's never going to give you the answer. That's the best part about the learning assistant. It's going to step you through the process like a great tutor would do.
Back to the relationship question.
Yeah.
AI creating people, not people, but bots, whatever the word is, that actually, I've heard about physical relationships with AI. Are we ever, you know more than I do, so.
Yeah, I don't think we're anywhere near that yet.
As crazy as that sounds to me, I don't know.
Well, have you ever seen the series on Hulu, I believe it is, called Uploaded?
Mm-mm.
So the premise is when somebody dies, we take their memory and upload them into a bot.
Mm-hmm.
And they live in this world where they're basically an avatar. And they can interact with other avatars, and they can interact with their loved ones and all of this kind of stuff. I don't think that's ever going to come to be, but Those are the things where these types of ideas come from, where we've got some really creative people. That's Uploaded has been out for probably 4 or 5 years before ChatGPT even dropped. But I do think it's important to note, I threw a stat out at you earlier that ChatGPT in 5 days had 1 million users.
Right.
It was like for Instagram, it was like 38 days. And for Facebook, it was like 3 months. So you can see how this impact is just moving so quickly. And everybody is touching AI some way, some shape or form now, I think.
So what we're seeing, and I know a lot of people are scared of AI, but then you start realizing that, we've been using it for a while, right? And I used the example earlier of Siri, right? Yeah. Which is AI. And,
sure.
She, for lack of a better word, has been in our phones for a number of years now. So we've been using it, but so many of us are I don't want to say scared, maybe skeptical might be a better word, of how far this goes. And, at some point, and you referenced the Terminator movie, at some point are, we overtaken by the things we've created.
Yeah.
Is that a realistic fear?
I don't think so. And that's not one of the fears I have.
Okay.
But you're right. We have been using it for years. I've had an Apple Watch for I don't know how many years. I get in my car in the morning and it'll pop up a message that says 22 minutes to the University of Lynchburg to work. It knows where I'm going. It's tracking. It's all data driven. And, as long as we are intentional about our data use, I think AI is going to be very, very beneficial. But you've also got to be very careful with your data. Ransomware attacks, I think, are going to go on the rise because we're going to have more and more people putting data into places where they really shouldn't because they just don't understand the ramifications of it's now the world's data instead of just yours.
You talked earlier about the importance of people corroborating what they've seen, double checking, fact checking to make sure it's all accurate. Man, I was just reading a story, today, this morning, sad stuff about people in foreign countries, scamming teenagers, and, it wound up, tricking them into sending nudes, and then there were suicides. And this is like a big thing with high school boys now, right? Because we can be tricked and fooled and very easily. Is there anything in particular that you think we need to be most aware of? Or most cautious of? Or
if you get a text message or an email from a company asking you for something, it's not real. They're not going to ask you for any of those things. Most of the companies tell you that in their user agreements, all of that stuff that nobody ever reads.
Right. I was going to say user agreements.
Yeah,
come on.
Exactly. One of the biggest ones that I've always preached against was Snapchat. Because in the user agreement, it says all of any photo that you send across Snapchat can and will be sold.
Wow.
So every single picture is stored on a server somewhere. There was a lawsuit, 6-7 years ago, where there was a porn website using a 13-year-old's face on their landing page. And the parents sued, and it got thrown out because they checked the box, user agreement. It says it can and will be sold. It doesn't say to whom. So we need to really be careful and read those user agreements and understand that your boss is not going to tell you to go get gift cards for them. Your grandson's not calling to say that they've been in an accident and they sound funny because their nose is broken. I mean, I've gotten all of these, but I know that, and I don't have a cousin that's a prince in Nigeria. Those are the things. And it's sad because we get so many phone calls, so many emails, and so many text messages that are scams. And if it seems too good to be true, it is. And with the advent of AI, these are going to become more and more prevalent, and they're going to get more and more sophisticated. So you really need to take a minute, stop, vet before you do anything. Microsoft's not calling you saying, hey, we're getting an alert. We need to log into your computer remotely.
And I think a lot of it is common sense, but it's getting more and it's getting trickier and trickier.
I got one today talking about an Amazon package that I had delivered. Well, I didn't order anything on Amazon, and it definitely was not that amount. But if you go up and you look in the email headers, it shows it's not coming from that. It's another part of my role at the university is helping with cybersecurity. And it all plays in together, AI, cybersecurity. You've really just got to be mindful and critically think about the things that you're looking at and you're about to do.
So it sounds like your best advice, and please correct me if I'm wrong, as far as, just being careful, double checking to make sure and verify all the information's correct.
That's coming out. And be very careful about what you put in, especially if you're not sure whether it's being used to train the model or not.
And that is more common in free versions.
All the free versions. Any free version of any AI, all that data is being used. The paid version, you need to read the user agreements.
And there are quite a few out there. Again, your personal recommendation is the Google Suite.
It is. I'm a big Gemini and Notebook LM fan. So one of the things that somebody could do with a free version of Google, let's say they wanted to look at ChatGPT, they could download that user agreement, put it into Notebook LM, and ask it questions about, is this information totally mine? Or is it being owned now by Google? A lot of people don't even know that if they get a free Google account, Gmail, everything that's in that is being data mined by Google. And actually, Google owns it per their user agreement.
Wow. That's scary.
But they give you the service for free, and in exchange, you give them
you give them your
data. Yeah. That's basically what it comes down to.
That's the trade.
Yeah.
What percentage of people do you think know that?
I would say it's less than 10%.
Yeah.
I really do. It's something that I try to teach. I can tell you that both my kids have heard this ad nauseum because we talk about this all the time. My wife was an ITRT here in Bedford County, so she does the same kinds of things that I do, and our kids didn't have a chance to not learn some of these things about it. And to be honest, some of their friends know about it because they come into our house, we talk about it. Mm-hmm. I know your son's been in my house, and we've had conversations like this. So, yeah.
So we talked about what to be careful of. And I know we talked about, best advice for getting started, whether it be in business or personal. But just kind of one more time to kind of give folks, a little bit of a heads up as far as, hey, here's how you dip your toe. Here's how you get started.
Well, I really don't want to leave this on gloom and doom because, yes, you do need to be mindful. You do need to really be intentional about what you put in. But it can be extremely helpful. Mm-hmm. And if you just take the time to start with something that the information's out there, that's not a big deal. Start with the free version. Talk about gardening. Talk about woodworking. Talk about, how do I build this for the house or, maintenance on the house or something like that. I mean, it's the same concept. We have a lot of people that go to YouTube to do things now, right? Mm-hmm. I've fixed several parts of my kids' cars because I've been going to YouTube. How do I do this? And we're going to see a lot of this creation as well with AI where people are going to create how-tos and those kinds of things. So there's so many things you can do with AI. And I really want that to be the takeaway from this conversation is that it can be really good and it can be really helpful, but you do need to be careful.
Well, and my biggest takeaway from it is, kind of you talked about the younger generation, the kids who were in high school and college and even earlier, but finding ways to utilize it and really helping them, to use AI in their careers. Mm-hmm. And, and also the fact that it's not really dumbing them down because you have to be smart enough to know how to use it to get the right information.
Sure. There was a time where we thought that typing on a computer was going to dumb them down because the handwriting is so essential. Nobody can read my handwriting, and really now we don't even have to keyboard because you can do speech to text. So we've got these tools, and that's all these are tools to help us be more efficient and more productive, just like Microsoft and Google productivity suites have been. There used to be WordPerfect. Well, I guess it still exists, but, that's what everybody used. Mm-hmm. And then Microsoft came along. She's laughing. She probably doesn't know what WordPerfect is. But, but there's been all these things that have been there, and then they got replaced. And I really look at it as that AI is really a calculator for words, not just writing papers, but doing all kinds of things.
Well, and, you use the term tools, right? And I think of, more conventional tools, screwdriver, but then all of a sudden you've got a power screwdriver. That's, it's doing the same thing. You're not actually doing the manual labor.
That's right.
Quite as much, but it's just helping you get something done faster. So,
correct. And that's really what this boils down to. And for people wanting to find jobs, I think the more tools you have in your tool belt, the better off you are. So if you can write really well, great. If you can use AI to help you supplement your writing really well, great. And I just think it's another tool you need to have in your tool belt.
And it's not going anywhere. So the quicker you embrace it in your personal life, or maybe even more importantly in your professional life, the better off you're going to be.
So one of the phrases I hear at almost every conference I go to is that what academia sees as cheating, the rest of the world sees as progress. And it's really the truth. When I talk to some of the people that are running businesses about, AI, they're wanting their people to be more efficient and to do things quicker. And yes, I know that this person is skilled and creative enough to get there, but I need them to do that plus 3 other things. And that's what AI is allowing us to really move towards.
So just another tool to help us get things done in a more quick, efficient way.
Correct.
Charley, thank you. This was fun.
Absolutely. It's been a blast.
Appreciate it. And I'm sure as things evolve, we'll have the opportunity to catch up again. I look forward to that.
I hope so. This has been a lot of fun. And hopefully I represented the University of Lynchburg well.
Absolutely. Charley Butcher, University of Lynchburg. Thank you.
Absolutely.